Imagine a warrior who never lost a single battle, a man who broke 9 swords in one fight because his strikes were so fierce, a commander whose body carried the scars of 100 wounds, yet whose name still echoes across history. This is the story of Khalid Ibn Walid, known as the Sword of Allah, a leader who terrified empires, outsmarted armies 10 times his size, and changed the course of world history. Khalid was born in Mecca around 592 into one of the most powerful families of the Quraysh tribe. His father was a wealthy leader, and from an early age Khalid was trained to be a fighter. He learned to ride horses, master swords, bows and spears, and command cavalry units. Strong, fearless, and ambitious, he was destined to become a warrior. Even as a child, he wrestled with other boys, including Omar ibn al-Khattab, who later became the second caliph of Islam. When the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, began preaching Islam, Khalid stood firmly with the Meccan elites who opposed him. He fought against the Muslims in the early battles, including the famous Battle of Uhud, where his brilliant cavalry maneuver nearly defeated the Muslims. At that point, Khalid was seen as one of the greatest threats to Islam. But something began to change. Khalid watched as the Prophet's followers, though outnumbered and persecuted, held to their faith with unshakable determination. He saw how his own brother, Walid, converted to Islam and found peace. And deep down, Khalid began to question the path he was on. That turning point came after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, when the Quraysh and Muslims agreed to peace. Khalid received a letter from his brother, urging him to think carefully. A man like you should not remain ignorant of the truth. You've missed many opportunities. Don't miss this one. Those words cut deep. Soon after, Khalid made his decision. Together with 2 other Meccan nobles, he traveled to Medina to meet the Prophet. When Muhammad saw him, he smiled and said, "I knew you were coming, Khalid. A man of your intelligence could not remain ignorant of Islam." At that moment, Khalid declared his faith, and the Prophet gave him a new title, Saifullah, the Sword of Allah. From then on, Khalid became one of Islam's greatest commanders. After the passing of the Prophet, Khalid continued to fight under the caliphs Abu Bakr and Umar. He led campaigns that brought down the mighty Persian Empire and shattered the Byzantine armies. In just a few years, he expanded the Muslim state across Syria, Iraq, and beyond. His name alone was enough to strike fear into enemies. One of his most famous victories was the Battle of Yarmouk in 636. Facing a massive Byzantine force, Khalid's strategies turned what seemed like certain defeat into a decisive Muslim victory. Rivers of blood filled the valley, and the Byzantines were forced to retreat forever from Syria. It was one of the battles that reshaped the Middle East for centuries to come. Yet despite his victories, Khalid remained humble. When some Muslims began to think their victories came only because of Khalid himself, Caliph Umar removed him from command to remind people that success comes from God, not from any one man. Khalid accepted the decision without complaint, saying, "I fight for Allah, not for Umar." But perhaps the most striking part of Khalid's life is how it ended. After more than 100 battles, after defeating the greatest empires of his age, Khalid did not die in combat. Instead, he fell sick and lay on his bed in Homs, Syria. Covered in scars from head to toe, he wept and said, "I fought in so many battles. There is not a place on my body without a wound from a sword, an arrow, or a spear. Yet here I am, dying in bed, like a camel. May the eyes of cowards never sleep in peace." Khalid Ibn Walid passed away in 642 at the age of about 50. When he died, he owned nothing but his horse and his sword. No riches, no palace, no lands, just a legacy of courage, sacrifice, and devotion. Khalid's story is more than a tale of war. It is a story about transformation, how a man who once fought against Islam became its fiercest defender. It's about resilience, leadership, and conviction. And it's a reminder that true strength isn't measured by how long you live, but by what you live for. Even today, the name of Khalid ibn al-Walid inspires millions. He was the undefeated commander, the sword of Allah, and one of history's greatest military geniuses.